Everyone else, I had back surgery like 2 months ago, and so, but we're cooking. The only thing left is I can't stand up too fast, or else, like I get like lightheaded.
Uh-huh.
But hopefully that'll go away soon. But
Uh-huh.
I was able to travel a bunch. I was just in Chicago for Zapier and San Francisco for Zapier for some stuff. So
Fun.
Fun. Yeah, I saw one of your. I think you posted something. You're like, "Excuse me, I'm in my bed. I just had." I was cracking up.
It's so funny. I was just like, I've always been so like, oh gosh, should I do TikTok or not? And I like played and dabbled with it, but I was like in bed doing nothing. I was like, whatever. And then someone's video just hit my brain in like a new way where they were just like, just talk to it like you would FaceTime a friend. And I was like, well, I would FaceTime a friend from bed. So let me just do that. And then I did that. And then it started going really well. I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Now when I don't do it from bed, people are like, I don't like it.
Yeah, no, that's like the best content is always the ones that is like you just look like a mess and you're in your bed or just woke up and they just perform. I mean, I can understand because everything is so staged nowadays. It resonates with people. It feels more personal that way.
Yep, absolutely.
But all right, everyone. So Phil here, the head of innovation from Zapier. I don't think he needs any further introduction on that. Great guy. He's also in Atlanta. We somehow connected on TikTok. I was like, I didn't know we were like following each other. But yeah, and I asked him to be part of this call. Some people might start just trickling in as the call goes on. But yeah, we're excited to be here. So Phil, I know I didn't give you too much brief beforehand. We typically keep this pretty much a free form. I don't want this to be. We don't want this to feel like something that's very staged, like just a presentation. It's really just an open communication, just like we're just really just shooting the shit. And we tend to start with opening the floor, just for the people here to see what are some of the questions they have for you. That you want to know, either is what Zapier is doing or just anything regarding implementing AI in business, etc.
Would it be helpful? Go ahead.
Just to give you some context, a little bit more context. We the community here is really cool. It's global, right? We have someone like Edward that's in the UK. We got Flavio down in Brazil, Brian here in the States, and you'll probably see some more people trickle in. So I share that way as you're sharing, at least for us when we're talking anything that's EU. We know there's some pretty tough standards out there. Where Brazil, it's kind of in the middle, and here in the US, I don't know. It's whatever the current administration wake up to and says, "Hey, I changed my mind." So,
oh boy, I hear that. Well, would it be helpful in that case for me to give you just like a brief introduction, background on some of my stuff, and that way everyone will have like a some context by which to ask me questions that would be helpful to them? Because I typically do a lot of my calls in like this AMA format, and they typically go really well. So happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Cool. Well, first of all, great to meet you. It's great to meet all of you. Super excited to be here. Like mentioned, my name is Phil Lakin. I'm the head of enterprise innovation at Zapier. I came into this role in this company by like a long, crazy road of like, I just give you the kind of quick version of my backstory. I was an actor before I was in tech, and so as non-technical as you can get. So I did like Law and Order and Gossip Girl and like a ton of off Broadway shows when I was living in New York. I was a super crappy waiter when I lived in New York. I never really got to fine dining. And so when I fell in love with like guerrilla marketing and street team marketing, just like a real direct form of sales. I just loved it. I worked in Times Square and did all that stuff. And I eventually got this idea to start my own company doing that. And so I took all my unemployed actor buddies and started like a street team agency. And we ended up just randomly working for like a lot of B2C tech companies at the time. And then one of them was an Israeli-based Uber competitor called Get, who was opening up shop in New York at the time. They were one of our clients, and they offered to acqui-hire us. And so when they did, and we joined them, they're like, cool, we don't want you working on consumers at all. We've got that covered. We want you using street teams to recruit drivers. And we want you to, our full onboarding thing is happening in the office right now. We want you to use tech to do that in the field. And so I was like, cool, like what tech team do I work with to build this? And they're like, no. You're an ops, bro. Like, figure it out, man. So that's where I discovered like no code before all this stuff got really popular, and use tools like, Zapier and Pronto Forms to build out a full, and Google Sheets to build out a full solution here that would work in the field. So I was using Zapier way before I worked here, and built my whole career in it essentially, because that led us to building a form, and like a way for drivers to onboard in the field, even if they had no internet, with our reps out in the field in like JFK and LaGuardia parking lots at the airports. And we onboarded like over 25,000, rideshare drivers in just a year and a half. So huge business impact. And then I was acqui-hired, and then I got poached by a company called Compass, a real estate tech company. And they wanted me to do, driver onboarding there. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even realize this was a skill, like onboarding and using software tools to do this thing. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And eventually became the first solutions architect nationally at Compass to use no-code no-code tools like Zapier, Enboarder, Google Sheets, like Easy Text, like to just solve a bunch of like really challenging stuff that like our engineering team never had time to solve for our internal teams. Learned a lot around like internal stakeholder management on that front, internal innovation. And then when I was on pat leave, I had this idea. I was like, MakerPad was really popular at the time, which was like the first kind of like big no code community. I wanted to build one of those, but for people like me, not who weren't founders or entrepreneurs, but more intrapreneurs internally, like ops people. And so I built a newsletter called No Code Ops that turned into a community. We eventually did services. We sold some big contracts to companies like Coinbase, like 140K plus contracts on like all like no code management stuff. And that eventually led into raising venture and building software for that audience. And so we raised $8.5 million in venture over 3 different rounds, built some tooling, some not successful, some more successful, around the observability side of no code. I think a lot of it was just way ahead of its time. Like I feel like now with AI and agents, these kinds of concepts are really needed. I don't think these tools had that level of buy-in where like there was a wide appetite for this stuff yet. And then, we were acquired by Zapier just about a year ago. And so now at Zapier, I've basically like my job is really working like with our more enterprise large clients on AI adoption internally at their companies. And so I work with I do a lot of content creation, top of funnel for that. I work on program delivery and creation. So I took like our kind of enterprise SKU and morphed it into something that was way more attractive in this age of AI, that I now run and own, called our AI transformation package. So, I mean, I'm a little bit of everything, right? I know how to use these tools. I know how to get business value out of these tools. I was doing a lot of this stuff way before it was super cool and had the AI label on it. I've done everything from, build a venture-backed company that was, exited, to running stuff internally at a company like Zapier and repackaging and shaping and positioning things. I'm using AI every day in like things like my own personal content creation and building my own audience. So I've done a little bit of it all, right? And I've even been an agency here too, right? So I can answer questions from a lot of different angles. And I find the best way that works is like, if you're just like, hey, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to go, or this is where I don't even know where I want to go, right? Or how I want to use these skills and apply them. All the way up to like, I'm having this very specific problem where I'd love to find the best tool for this thing. So, and if I don't know, I'm always the first one to be like, I have no fucking clue. I'll tell you. So I've just I've done all of the different roles. I think the best way to think of it is like, who's ever seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire, right? I feel like that's my story, where it's like I've randomly done all of these things through my career that now can help a lot of people at a lot of different stages. So here to jam.
No, I love that, Phil. And look, and it's important. And you said the age of AI. I always say the era, but we sound like ChatGPT, so I try not to use those 2 terms.
Oh, dude, we internally at Zapier, we fully embrace sounding like AI. It's the funniest thing. We don't even try to mask it. Like M- is fucking welcome, baby. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, but yeah, it just depends on the client. But you touched on something so important that we do with our clients. So the education piece obviously is one, but when you're working with agencies, how do you tie that into the business side? Because you get a lot of folks that are very technical, but if you don't understand or you haven't been in business, like how do you tie it into real estate, right? How do you tie it into telecommunications? How do you tie it into healthcare? And unless what people are realizing now, especially a lot of the agencies that we work with, they're like, well, shit, I need somebody that knows about business or at least common sense, right? I'm finding people that have a liberal arts degree are a lot more successful than others that maybe just have that technical. Yeah, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say there's a reason I got my bachelor in arts in communication from the Liberal Art College of Muhlenberg, right?
You see? No, listen, and so it's what I just said. You just confirmed that and people are starting to realize that. Like this is anecdotal. We haven't done like thousands, but most of the companies now are looking for this. The ones that are AI forward, they're saying, wait a minute, I need somebody that can communicate very well, because again, people said for a while there, and I'll let Ed speak to this. Oh, well, we can just have AI create prompts, or we can just buy these libraries. You have to have excellent communication skills. And I can tell you, Edward, who's part of our group here, has been recognized. I'll say this in the most humble way because he gets embarrassed. Recognized globally, right, by places like Oxford University, like all over the world, and this is pretty much what he does. So some pretty cool things. I mean, he writes about Batman too, but that's a whole different story.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how I got my start in it, because my background is not in the arts, but it's in journalism, and so I just sort of took my ability to turn words. And because prompt engineering is entirely text-based, I just turned it into my whole career. No technical background or nothing. Obviously, I was a bit of a nerd at the time. I mean, if I'm a big fan of Batman, hence the background. Thank you, Flavio. I just turned it into something I enjoy doing, and here I kind of am.
So cool. Look, that's the thing, right? I'll say this. I love that, by the way. I'll say this on the agency side. So I see a lot of agencies. This is the path that I typically see and where people fall down on the agency front. So we'll break it down into a few different issues, right? Because there's a lot there. The first thing is most people get into the agency world on some level because they freelanced or did something. They were like, I think I could sell this, right? And do this, right? And that's awesome, right? So maybe they used a tool at work, or they did something for themselves, or maybe someone asked them to do something. They're like, oh my gosh, I could totally turn this skill into a monetizable kind of thing. Now, some folks are like, okay, I kind of get how to do the sales kind of side of this, or I've done this before, and that's great. They're in the minority. Most folks are like, oh, wow, building a thing and selling a thing are radically different. And what happens with a lot of those folks is that they immediately think the default of, well, if I'm going to sell stuff, I need the widest possible market. I need to do the most amount of things. And so what they end up doing is they just, with best intentions, they just sell themselves as automation or AI generalists. They work with anyone, they take any work, and then the clients bucket them as the AI or automation handyman. And that is the lowest common denominator of work that is getting more and more commodified by the day. And I always recommend that people stay away from it. It's not good work. The only good way to do that stuff is like if you've got a bigger business and you use it for top of funnel for certain things, like that's fine. But like I try to stay away from that stuff. What I tell folks to do is there's a few different categories, right? So there's like industry, there's company stage, there's employee size, there's situational problems they have, fractional help that they may need. You basically take a bunch of those categories and you mush them together is the goal, right? And you say, you want to be as niche as possible, right? Because the more niche you are, the higher you can charge. And that's pretty much it. And you want it to be in some area that you know a decent amount about, or you're willing to learn about. If you don't know about it yet, you can offer to do some free work on this front for clients in that space for a few hours, a week, until you feel more comfortable that you know more about it and know the language. But let's say you happen to know, I don't know, your current gig is like, it's like journalism, right? So you have a journalist background, right? You know more about journalism, way more about journalism in the journalism industry than the average automation person, obviously, right? And so, you might think like, I help newsrooms develop systems for X, or I help freelance journalists find gigs to write for. I don't know, whatever it is, right? You choose your problem, your stage, your whatever, right? I help any tech startup in the news industry, right, selling to news agencies or journalists, right, on how to deliver on why. I don't know. I think if you can, they don't care about what type of tool you're using. So many times you see people being like, I'm an Airtable expert, I'm a Zapier expert, I'm a Gen AI expert. No one gives a shit, right? Like, I don't care when the handyman comes to my house to fix a thing. I don't care what brand of hammer he has. No one cares, right? Just, I need the thing fixed, right? And when I'm going out and hiring someone for a job, right? There's a difference between you like, oh, my HVAC is broken, I just need someone to fix it, versus like, I want someone to remodel this entire part of my house, right? I'm not going to bring a general contractor or just an HVAC person to do that bigger thing, right? And so you want to find those jobs where it's like, and this, I like project work and hour-based work. There's people that love that, and that's cool. I never am the first to recommend that type of work to agency folks. The first type of work I'm looking for is like long-term, long commitment, minimum 2K a month, minimum 3-month type of work. And I like to work backwards from that. Those are the people that I find the most happy and the most successful in the agency world for this stuff. So it's like, I'm a long-term partner. This is what we do. We solve stuff in this area for you, and we can stick with you and keep optimizing, maintaining, further pushing, further building, bringing in new tools, etc. for that area. Those are like the happiest people that I know who are doing the keeping the clients and doing the most well in the space. Don't get me wrong. There's people that are really happy doing the other stuff, the project-based stuff, the bid stuff, the handyman fix-it stuff, the high turnover stuff. There's people that love that. That's great. But like the largest amount of folks that I've seen are like, they're solving a specific problem for a specific area, and they're doing it on that kind of retainer-based model.
It's interesting. I love what you just said. So the way we work, we kind of go against the grain based on what you said. It's interesting because, and I won't go into all of it, but because the whole purpose of this is, right, we help to debunk and kind of just cut through the bullshit. We call it the AI hype, right? Because everybody's so bombarded with this crazy marketing. Like, we get clients coming to us pretty much saying, hey, I want a digital twin tomorrow, and I want it to be better than the actual real person, right? So we're like, okay, let's take a step back. Can we just automate your inbox first, and then go from there? But it's interesting because and at some point, we may not do it today, we'll probably do it in another live, but we want to talk about our journey, because there's a lot of folks that'll come on and they really want to get into this world. And I'm like, you know what? The more the merrier. Like, do it the right way.
For so many folks, like, I'm just telling you right now, from what I see in the CEOs of companies, like big companies that I work with all the time, there's way more demand than supply for people who actually know what they're doing here. Yep. And the problem is like the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is like, all these people that like took one freaking 10-minute NAN course and kind of sold one agent one time for $5 was like, oh my God, I can make so much more money tricking other people into believing that this thing is possible for them and making money on my course than I can, like, I don't know, whatever. And this is like, this is why, you remind me, I always phrase it, Ciao. Yeah. This is why I fucking love your content, man. Right? Like, I don't do a lot of things where I speak in different communities on this front. This is one of the rare times I do it, because like, he's the real fucking deal. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, and I followed him and I was like, dude, we got to jam. Then I found out he was in Atlanta. I'm like, oh, we got to do shit together.
We're both
like, yeah. So like, not selling that snake oil, and I fucking love that. But the problem is that the dumbest people are out there making the most noise.
It's like you open TikTok, like everyone's feed is different, but I assume our feed is gonna be very similar. like 9 out of 10 video you see those like 18 years old kids saying I made 40K a month selling this VP agent and join my school community to pay for my course. But it's like that, like there's no business gonna pay you 40K a month for that one solution. It just
0%.
it doesn't
And
make sense.
No, it's not true. And if it is, they're going to churn, right?
Yeah.
So, or they're going to go out of business because they're making terrible business decisions, right? So,
Yeah.
the reality is that like the people that are like, you know, been attracted to this community, like, you know, all y'all on this call, and like we're thinking more deeply about this stuff. The problem that typically I find with like the smarter folks in the area who are really evaluating things is not that they can't figure out the tools and do the thing. It's they have a harder time finding the clients, negotiating the things, right? And like believing in themselves enough to go after the business itself and putting themselves out there, creating content to, you know, get themselves out there, because they're like, well, I have this imposter syndrome or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, Phil, you've unpacked so much, but I want to let Andy. Hey, Andy.
Yep.
Andy's in the UK as well. So
What's up, man?
you're on mute.
You're on mute, Andy.
So I'm just curious, and talk about the cost and stuff, but and what clients be prepared to pay. But is there any drive towards the kind of it's popular in some parts of marketing, but more of a value-based pricing rather than cost-based pricing? So you know, if you're going to save the company 100,000 a month and you're charging them 40,000 a month, suddenly that seems reasonable, and that might be for a fixed period of time, and then it goes to a more reasonable thing thereafter. But you know, here's a solution to your problem, custom made for you at a proportion of the amount that it's going to either make you or save you once that's been validated retrospectively. And
I'll tell you this, that is very possible on a project basis. But the problem with these project-based things, the companies that you're working with are not sophisticated enough to know what the fuck they need, right?
Yeah.
And so you end up having this big back and forth that takes a shit ton of your time. You finally land on something, and then fucking 1 month into it, the CEO sees some new shiny thing. Is like, oh, can we also do this? And then you get a shit ton of scope creep, and you're figuring out how to balance the initial goal with the initial stakeholders versus what the CEO says. And that's why I like to avoid that shit, because you can get the same results with retainer-based stuff, but you control way more of it, right? Where you can read that value-based stuff back to them, right? But you're a little bit more in control, where it's like, look, you've got, you know, for $5,000 a month, you got 20 hours of my time a month, right? And like, I'm going to work with you to prioritize how we're going to do that, because I'm looking at your ROI and bottom line. And I want to make sure every month you're getting back at least 5x what you put into me, at least. And I'm going to control that a little bit with you as like a co-PM. And you get that flexibility when you do retainer-based stuff, and you have none of that flexibility when you do project-based stuff. And maybe one day when people are more sophisticated in terms of what to ask for and what to buy, sure, right? But most of them are not. And I just, you know, and sometimes it's true. You'll find folks that are like, look, we want to, right? It's like, okay. But like most of them aren't. And that's why I like the retainer stuff. You can still prove that value-based stat, right?
Yeah.
But you can do it in your own way.
Yeah, just justifying it, so you know, comes up for renewal or whatever. Look, I've saved you this much is always a good way of framing it. It just when you talk about the large values, to sell them to a company, as I say, effectively it's performance-related pay for a fixed period, and then goes on to a standard amount. Might be a good way to frame
So
it.
I think you're mixing two things there, right? And let's break both of those things down, right? I think you're mixing like the can we prove ROI stuff in terms of renewal, right? Which I think is a very valid thing you can do in either business model, right? But the second thing there that you're talking about is a very good thing to highlight, which is de-risking stuff, right? How do you de-risk this up front for the sale to make it such an easy yes, it's a no-brainer, right? And there are several ways to do that for several different models, right? One of those things could be like, look, I'm going to do work. I'm just going to come and work for you. And if you agree that I can save, if I can get rid of that piece of SaaS and it actually works, then you pay me, you know, per month to maintain this thing, which is way less than whatever you were paying them, or you can do that, right? But I just think that that stuff is inherently risky, right? Because I don't know, just stuff changes a lot, or demands change and requirements change and what they're expecting changes. And like, I just find like the safest, happiest model is like, look, I'll come in and do one thing for you to show you that I can do the thing, right? I'll do one scope of work, one proof of concept, right? On like on a fairly scoped out thing, right? And how it works is you can combine these models. You could say, look, I am $5,000 a month for a minimum of 3 months for this many hours, right? But in order to work with you, you know, like we'll do a $1,000 project that you pay for up front. You hate my work, you get the $1,000 back, and we never, you know, I totally de-risk it for you. But if you like it, that $1,000 credit goes towards your first month. That's it. You can get as flexible as you want, man.
Yeah.
Sean, I
So
think
I-
you have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to jump in with a quick question. You touched on so many good nugget. One thing that we're seeing a lot is, especially just on the hype of, you know, AI agency online, is that a lot of people make this claim of you don't need to be technical to sell AI. I think that's completely BS, because from like, that's something also that we talk a lot, right? Like we kind of struggle with it because we wanted to be able to bring on a salesperson for our team, right? That's going to help us a lot. But also, it's tough to hire those people, is because in the end of the day, if you don't have a deep understanding of the technology, you can't answer the client's question accurately, right? For example, everyone has this false expectation on AI right now. They just think you can do everything. If you don't truly understand the limitation of AI and the latest advancement of AI, you're either gonna undersell the product, or you're gonna overpromise the client. Like a simple problem.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is a deep understanding of the product, which I still think you can be non-technical. For what it's worth, I've delivered some crazy shit, right, on the client front. Like, I've never written a line of code.
But you have a deep you touched.
But I have a deep understanding of what's possible and what's not with the products and where to sub in stuff, right? So, you know, I just had a call like this earlier today. Like, I do like these like I do these 1 hour calls with folks where I'm just, you know, deep dive on one problem with them. And this one guy was like, he was just trying to throw everything at like level, or not level, base 44, right? I was like, well, you actually have 4 problems there, and it's pretty shit at 3 of those things, right? So let's break that out into like, you know, using a form, right? Instead of using base 44. Let's break that into using a workflow thing. Let's break that into an authentication software, right? And so I have a pretty good tool belt and what's possible when to strip things out. And look, AI is going to get better and better, or maybe you don't need to do that as much, but in today's version of it, you need to know what the tools are capable of, what they're not capable of. And you only find that out through experimentation, right? Yeah. Or like, you know, being willing to be like, dude, I know this thing can't do all the stuff, or it can, but it's really shit at it, right? And so there's just like employees. Like I have different employees that have different strengths in different areas. And so, you know, like I'll give you a great example. Man, all these fucking vibe code app things totally blow shit at like user management, right? They're just god awful at it, right? I'd say the furthest one along that I've seen that I really like is like Zite. They've made some pretty good, you know, things on that front.
Zite?
Yeah, Zite, Z-I-T-E. They came, but only because they came from a form company called Fillout. But it's my favorite like vibe code builder, because like you could like drop forms right into it that you build through it. But but they also have like authentication, like user authentication built in. They have databases built right in. You could connect it to Airtable or Google Sheets as your database. It's so good, right? So that's like my thing there. But then there's forms that we know back from our no code days, or there's apps we know from our no code days that other people should be using too, like Outseta, right? If you're building a pretty big micro SaaS, or like you're actually having to manage users, you shouldn't be building all that shit vibe code. You should be using Outseta for everything from your internal CRM to email management to user management to payment and subscription management, to like different, sign up forms across the website for email subscriptions to, reporting on, your income, right? Like Outseta just solves all that shit, right? And so I'm not trying to vibe code every little thing. I'm saying, okay, where does it make sense to do this and manage and maintain this versus like, where am I going to ship this off and like spend 20 or 30 bucks a month for something that like, you just fucking handle that shit for me.
Well, look, and to your point, it's the testing piece. I want to go back to something you said, which is, I know Shao and I've talked about this. I was a pre-sales engineer many years ago at AT&T, and I had the job of understanding what our tech guys, right, were doing, but also putting it in plain English for the businesses we were trying to sell to. And we go back to this piece, right? You don't have to be super technical. You just have to understand it. And things have gotten so much simpler. If I go to Zapier, right, there's demos, I can actually talk intelligently, but to your point, sometimes people are just BSing. I think you call this snake oil, right? That's one thing with our content. We'll call it out. We're not shaming specific
and look,
individuals.
I wouldn't focus on those folks, like maybe on your all's, possibly, but like when you're an H, you don't have to focus on those folks at all, right? Like if you deeply understand a certain area, right? If you can combine two things, deep understanding of what a product or a group of products is capable of and not capable of, and like having a tool belt there. So like, for example, my tool belt is like Zapier, Zeit, Stripe, like Calendly sometimes for certain things, sometimes Airtable, right, if I need to get a little more complex, and like Zapier agents, and like that's my fucking stack, you know what I mean? And I'm comfortable knowing what's possible in different areas and what's not, and so, and if I need something different, I'll go and search for it and find it, right, where it's like I'm not hitting the right benchmarks. But the thing is, all you need is just a group of tools and deep understanding of what they're capable of. And you need some insider information on terms or whatever from a business that makes sense. So Oscar, that's what makes pre-sales engineers so successful is they learn the businesses that they're selling into, not just their own technology. So when you're interfacing with those clients, you can translate their needs really well or speak their language. Let me ask you this. Let's just say, stupid example. I'm a lawyer, right? And I'm a lawyer that's heard a lot about this, and I've got a firm, right, that maybe we have 50 lawyers, right? So we're a mid-sized firm, okay? And we make a lot of fucking money, right? Because lawyers make a lot of money, right? And I'm hearing about all this AI stuff, but I have no clue where to even start, right? Or maybe I've seen like someone, my other buddy's firm uses AI to manage all of their something called like, I don't know what it's called, like minute books or something like that. I don't know, right? And it's like, I want to do that. So let's say I'm looking at two different options. I'm looking at an automation generalist who just generally works with all these different tools, but I don't even know what those tools are. So I'm probably not even finding them that well, but hey, my buddy recommended me this person, right? And they just know a lot of AI tools. That's great. So then there's other guy who all he does is work with mid-size lawyers on 5 or 6 types of processes or things. And one of them is minute books. Who do you think I'm hiring? That's right. And you want to be that no-brainer person for folks, right? Everyone's scared about niching down to limit TAM, and TAM is not your problem. Specificity is almost always the problem. So you do want to adjust that. You don't want to like sell into people that have no money and rarely have a problem, right? You want to sell into a group that has money and the problem is an expensive problem. You know what I mean? So you want to be a little bit have some discernment there. But like, there's so many of those areas.
Let me ask you. You touched on earlier on the call. One of the biggest problems you're seeing some agencies have, and I think that this is really good for this group here, is securing clients. Right? There's a lot of demand out there, but a lot of the folks that are going into this business, they're still having a tough time finding those clients and being able to secure it. What do you recommend?
A few things. It's people like to think that if I'm just the best at what I do, people will find me, and nothing could be further from the truth, right? The best software doesn't win ever. You know who wins when you're picking software? The one that was like marketed the best and sold the best, right? And that could do the job. There are 10 different softwares that could probably do the job, and probably some even better, right? But the best ones don't win. It's not a meritocracy, right? Now, retention is based in meritocracy. Like, if they retain it, right? If you suck, you're not going to keep the client, right? But in terms of the client finding, you got to think like this, right? You got to think, how do I do a few things and reverse engineer it? So let's say, let's say lawyers is the example here that we're going with, right? Well, you guys ask yourself a few questions. How do I build trust in that space and authority, right? And how do I make it easy for people to find me? Those are typically two separate questions. So the trust piece is, well, I probably need some reference clients, right? Which we covered earlier, right? So let me make a really no-brainer offer. It could be free. It could be, risk-free. It could be like, look, you're gonna pay me $1,000 up front. If you hate my work, I'll just give you $1,000 back. I don't give a shit, but at least get some skin in the game. I don't know, whatever. You just make a stupid dumb offer where it's like, I'm gonna find my way into like, a lawyer, and I'm gonna say, hey, I want to help you automate XYZ. I'm just expanding my portfolio into this area, so I need some reference clients. I just ask you to be a reference client. By the way, most of the time I end up asking you to do paid work after that trial period anyway, because they're just like, well, you're the guy. I trust you, right? So you need that trust. Now, the other thing is, how do you find clients, to get in with, right? How do you, once you've built that credibility, you have that case study, you speak that language, you know what I mean? Your website speaks that language. How do you even get people to your freaking website, right? By the way, the best people to ever write landing page copy are the guys at Flex PMM. There's no one better than them that I've worked with. They are bar none the best what they do at like writing, converting website copy. I've worked with them in like every project over like the past 3 projects I've worked on. So let's say you got a website, your niche, cool. Now you've got to get into people's orbit where they can easily reach you or find you or be attracted to want to work with you. I hate to give you a boring fucking thing, but it's creating content. And I know it sucks. Right? But just like getting yourself on camera and creating fucking content to become that trustworthy source. Dude, I had one TikTok that just, blew up, for my lying down in bed stuff, right? And like the amount of inbound that I got from that was disgusting.
Yeah.
Right. I also say creating content is really good because it forces you to be like, okay, what resonates and doesn't resonate with this audience? Who is this attracting? Who am I attracting? Right. What TikToks are attracting more inbound or more comments from my type of ICP, right? Like, so you just constantly are thinking about your ICP, right? And so you're like, okay, what are the challenges they're facing or whatever, right? And where do they live? And that could be on TikTok, it could be on LinkedIn, it could be on Twitter, wherever, right? But like, content is only one of the ways. I think some of the other ways are like, hey, can I go to a community of lawyers, someone who has a community of lawyers that are interested in tech, and like offer to do a free workshop for them and borrow their credibility and get in with them and do some workshop that's actually meaningful for that community. I've gotten tons of clients like that in the past, right? Can I speak at some workshop, right? In person or virtually, right? And offer my, just like, hey, I'm not going to charge you a speaker fee. I'm going to give people really valuable advice and actually teach them how to build something or teach them how to evaluate what's possible, not possible with AI stuff, right? So, think of like, where can I borrow other people's credibility where I'm not starting from scratch and to get into their orbits?
I love that. Listen, we track this in our agency. We probably get 20x doing content versus a lot of the digital marketing, traditional stuff that people were doing. We stopped digital marketing altogether. We said, you know what? It's just not worth it anymore because a lot of the stuff we were getting to was, to your point, it wasn't finite. It was just all over the place. We wasted so much time and money. With the content piece, you get the credibility. Like you said, we're no bullshit type of content. You get that credibility right off the bat. It switches the dynamic between a customer and us because with the DM, you're almost trying to sell them. With the content, they're coming to you. So
you don't need to do you shouldn't be starting at all with ads or cold outreach. That's for when you have something that works and you want to pour fuel on the fire. That's not what you do in the beginning. In the beginning, it is all about like using content to experiment and using like workshops. Let me just give you an example, right? At Zapier, we're a PLG. We started as a product-led growth company, right? So like, learning sales for us is like really, really hard. It's been a long journey, right? It's part of my job to help figure that out. Okay. All I did to close our first $250,000 deal in this new package that I created for Zapier, right? All we did was I said, And there was no huge marketing campaign. There was no brand awareness. There was not even content. There wasn't a cold outreach. There wasn't expensive executive dinners. All I did was I have a co-working space here in Atlanta. I said, I'm going to take 5 CEOs and I'm going to teach them about AI transformation over the course of 4 hours. What works, what doesn't work, totally unfiltered AMA, right? And then I'm going to teach them how to build their first agent so they understand how we teach this stuff and so that they can see what's possible. I did a little bit of cold outreach to some people, or not even cold, like warm, pretty warm outreach actually, to like folks that I was already connected to on LinkedIn. They were like, fuck yeah, let's go. We never have time. We never saw CEOs never set aside time to actually do this shit. Let's do it. It's top of mind for me. I got 5 people in a room. 4 days later, the guy called me and goes, just take our money.
Yeah.
I got the decision maker on the right problem that was expensive to them, showing them that I was the expert in it, give them valuable things that even if they didn't buy anything from me, they could take away and understand and use. 4 of them didn't buy. 1 of them bought. That workshop cost me $0 to put up. I didn't even pay for fucking lunch.
Yeah, listen, but you did something. You pulled them out of an environment where people have probably bombarded them around AI. You pulled them out, undivided attention, and it worked. I think the other thing too is we do a lot of mentoring with AI labs and universities, and we did it on purpose because we used to do individual time. We just didn't have it. So we said, how can we continue to support and mentor? We started doing this, and a side effect of that, some of these AI labs run across some complex projects. Both of them over to us, but it wasn't the intention. And people know when you're trying to sell nowadays, you know, again, being in marketing for years, most of the things we do not sell. We don't even mention. And when you do that, people see it. Oh, these guys are being genuine. They're not like in your face.
Dude,
now, if you're talking enterprise,
I
it's a
don't
little bit different.
fucking anything, man. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, no, I'm just like, look, I know that if I can get the right people for the right reason in a room, I know I'll close one of them. That'll just happen. It'll just happen. If I got the right people and I got them for the right problem and they're learning stuff from me, they'll come to me. Maybe not right away, but you can sure bet when they're feeling that problem, they're not going to go to the best person in the world. They're going to go to the person they know who can do the thing that they already have a relationship. That'll be me.
Yeah. No, I think about it. So going back to what the main purpose where we get together every week on this is balancing the hype versus reality of AI. Are you still seeing a lot of that yourself, and how do you handle it?
Yeah, but honestly, I fucking love the hype, dude.
I'm talking about the fake hype.
No, even that. I love it.
Okay.
I love it. I love it. Because
is it because it gives you the opportunity to go ahead? Sorry.
No, yeah. Not only does it give me opportunity to, you know, beat the shit out of those folks. Look, there's going to be some folks that get burned by it and never come back, and that's fine. That's just the price you got to pay. Whatever, fuck it, right? Who cares? The reason I love it is because, and I love all the snake oil people too, because it's like, oh wow, people really see value in this shit, right? What it's telling me is that, first of all, the snake oil people are creating content the CEOs that I'm talking to see also, but they can see through their bullshit on some level. So these people are getting surrounded by all this content. And I'm the one guy that comes in and says, I know what the fuck I'm talking about here, actually. And they go, yeah, let's go with you. Right? You're doing, all these people are doing free advertising for me, man. Like, because here's the thing. The shittiest part about the world of no-code automation was that we didn't have that hype. We had it within the tech bubble in like 2019, 2020, but like, and then it just quickly went away. And it was very tech industry related. Dude, now with the hype around AI, everyone believes everything is possible. And the reality was 95% of it was possible before all this shit with no-code tools anyway. So now a little bit of AI sprinkle, like, yeah, it is. And more people believe it's possible. And now more people are like having FOMO and throwing resources and money at this shit, right? So it's like, I now became the most valuable guy in the room. So like, I'll fucking take it, man.
No, I love it. I love it. It's true because it does create that. I would say a year ago, it wasn't like it was now. You were getting a lot of that and you just didn't know and people didn't go after it. Now, all these bad actors creates a lot of opportunities for you, for everybody on this call.
Dude, so much. And like, here's the thing. This thing that I sold this company for $250K, okay? This same thing, minus some AI steps and some workflows, okay, was all entirely possible and teachable in the world of like Zapier before this stuff, okay?
Yeah.
There was no fucking universe where this company was going to pay me $250K to teach every other company how to use Zapier. No, not even fucking close. They didn't have that need and they weren't going to spend that money. Now that AI is a thing and that Shopify memo came out and everyone wants to have their whole companies learn AI, right? And think about AI first before doing anything. Okay. We can do that. And that's a $250,000 problem.
Phil, let me ask you something. I know we joked about what's going on with the current administration and how they just kind of took off all the guardrails with AI. I think it was here. I just been on calls all day, so sorry if I'm assuming. But we had a client today. They wanted to do some things in some states like Tennessee where they've put some pretty strict laws around music and things like that. In your current role right now, are you like do you guys have not even disclaimers, but do you have anything where you work with specific clients depending on the area they're in, like if it's the EU or a certain state, or is everything that you offer you're pretty much CYA, you're good?
Yeah, I've
to go?
CYA. We've CYA'd on that front. Like, so for what it's worth, at Zapier, my department does very little of the actual delivery and ownership of the thing because we don't believe in that in the way that we work. We train folks in the company on how to do it, and then co-build with them, so they're the inevitable owner and have all the risk, right? So they have to own it. They have to do that research. Like, we're just here helping you build the thing. Like, we're helping you build the hot rod, whether it's street legal. That's up to you to figure out.
Okay. And I wasn't sure because I know kind of the everyday person that uses the tool is okay, but I didn't know if on the enterprise size, you're talking to
We've also done all the work to understand the limitation. Like, we work very closely with our IT teams to translate those guardrails. So like, we know a little bit about that stuff and we can help like generally translate those needs. But like, we'll know, okay, hey, like, we can't put data over there, that type of data over there. We can't put this type of thing over here, or we can't but like the very specific regional nuance, like GRC stuff, like we typically have like a sniff test around, like, we're thinking like, oh, there might be some issues here. So we'll flag it to their council. Do you know what I mean? To look into, or their GRC team. But like, we're not going and figuring out all that stuff for them. Like that's on them as a company, right? We're the enablement folks. Which is a great way to sell this stuff. It's harder to, get contracts in some ways, but because typically only the bigger businesses need enablement stuff, not the smaller ones. Smaller stuff just want you to get stuff done for them. They're willing to pay for it, which is great. But yeah, like a lawyer, like a legal firm, they're not going to want their lawyers figuring out how to use this shit. They just want the tools. They just want to build.
Yeah. And I think Flavio has a lot of experience working with a lot of the law firms. We've done some work, but we just stay away. Their personalities. It's just, I'm like, you know what?
And negotiate like motherfuckers, those guys. They're sharks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of them, they're just, it's hard to deal with. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Guys,
anyone else have, or I guess open it up to anyone. Like, anyone have thoughts or questions that I can be of help with?
Well, I'd say you just pretty much answer all of the questions I had without asking them.
I'll take it.
He's a mind reader.
That was awesome.
Cool. I'm happy to help.
Phil, I think one of my questions is, what are some of the biggest requests you are seeing in terms of demanding for you to deliver on the AI side of things? Like, is there a certain area people are just like, hey, like most people are asking for automating their onboarding process? Like, is there?
Dude, it's everything, man. There's no shortage of anything. Like, you name it. Onboarding, offboarding, fucking. I mean, my wife does this stuff internally at her company on the people side, the people ops side. And now she's like heading up all their AI stuff for just like, ticket resolution for the HR team. Like, dude, like it's everywhere, man. It's in every little nook and cranny. But I will say there's an ideal profile of buyer, which is more important, which is, you don't want to convince anyone that they have to use this stuff, right? You want them coming to you convinced.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where content comes in.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you want to find not only are they convinced, but ideally they tried something on their own and they totally fucked it up. Right? And they've had some pain. That's who you want to go after. Do you know what I mean? They've tried to do this internally. And the way that I would pitch myself as an agency on this front, if I was thinking about if I was like a solo or small micro agency, I would think of myself like, you know, here's what we, how do I say this? Like we partner with X teams to accomplish Y goals.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and by the way, you can always quote back to clients in that 95% of AI failure stat that came out from MIT. One of the 6 things in common that the 5% had was they partnered with outside partners. They didn't try to do everything in-house.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I was going to bring it up if we had time. You know, I really, like, I sat there and looked at it, and I'm kind of torn because it was a small snapshot. I believe that is an issue, that most companies are having issues with it, because it's like, hey, I have a buddy that does this. They really don't vet it, and then they get burned or bitten in the ass. But I don't know if it's that high, because I don't think they looked at things like information, right?
It's probably higher.
And there's a lot of things in that report. Like I also sat down and just really analyze more in depth. They made a lot of very, very bold claim. It doesn't sound right. I think one of the data point they show is like they saw 0% improvement across the department. That's not possible.
Exactly.
That's there's no way you're gonna.
And here's the other thing: the problem that thing is running into, right? Also, is like people don't know how to measure this shit effectively. And if you're ever selling stuff to clients, you've got to have hard numbers to back this stuff up. Never sell time saved, ever. Right? That is the worst fucking thing to sell. Right? Because it's too mushy, and time always gets reallocated. I'd say the things you want to sell are like, can we cut out some manual process that you're paying an external vendor for? That's a hard cost. Can we get rid of a certain set of SaaS that you don't need? Can we help you, basically, like what all of this leads into, which is what I call the golden metric for AI efficiency in companies, which is, can we help you make more revenue by keeping the same headcount? Can we increase revenue by headcount? Right? And that's either getting rid of some certain hard costs or increasing revenue while keeping the people the same.
Phil, speaking of measuring ROI, do you guys have a process where, let's say, once you onboard a client, implement a solution for them, you meet with them like a month after to track that?
Dude, we do, but like that's where I say that's where I hate that like project-based stuff. That's why I keep people on retainer for like a long-term thing where it's like I'm now a capability of your company. I'm not a project solver or a handyman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's always something that needs work, right? But I'm going to help you prioritize it and get her done. Flavio, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, he had a question.
Yeah, but you answered already.
All right, Andy, how about you?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, when you talk about companies failing, I mean, I'm in a particular industry. My background is a little bit like Edward, in that I come from the writing side rather than the tech side. I don't code, can't code. I'm more interested in kind of like because it's quite tightly regulated and how the tools can be used within our industry. And so I test tools and stuff like that. One of the big things with failures I see is, I mean, you have lots of people who try little things, don't quite understand it, can't prompt whatever, and that fails. That's minor. But there's also a fair number of companies put the money in to develop their own custom platform when it wasn't necessary, because they could just be using off-the-shelf things. And then having spent the money on this, it's the kind of sunk cost fallacy. So the thing's still running, they're still using it and trying to find use cases for it, but they're just pouring money into something where, they're doing things that you could do with a 20, these days they spent a lot of money on a platform or bought a company that had a platform, and it's doing something that you can do with a 50 quid subscription to ChatGPT.
So,
you know what I mean?
Here's the deal with that stuff, right? here's the deal with that stuff. I'd say there's only two approaches there that I've seen work, which is one, you need some leader who is fed the hell up, right? And like it knows what you know and is like ready to be like, you're not going to convince them. There's like a 95% chance you're not going to convince them of shit. If they want to pour money into stuff, if they're comfortable pouring money into stuff, even if it's broken, remember, to get anyone to change anything, right, they've got to be a willing party, right? And it's got to be 10x better, because if it's only 2x better or 3x better, then that's not enough for the process of change and teaching everybody a new tool and getting comfortable with the new risks associated or whatever. There's got to be a 10x better.
I would just add that they have to feel a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're not feeling the pain and you're inventing the pain for them, then it's dead, and it's dead in the water. But the other side of it is, one thing you can do if they're like kind of feeling the pain or they're kind of, in the gray area, what you can do is just mock up something with dummy data and say like, I built this in a day and it works, right? Look at what it does, play with it to prove, just like an MVP to prove things out, because people believe things when they're hands-on with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually, I mean, I think I've said before that the things I call research are not what you would call research. They're more kind of proof of principle type things. But I have done and published research showing that you can do these things with ChatGPT and Claude. Gemini sucks, but for these use cases. But in the meantime, that's published was a year ago, and they're still trying to make their own custom platform to do this thing. And just the time to make it,
like, you've got to put it in their language, in their terms, in like an accessible way for them. Like, people have no imagination, man. None.
Yeah, this is to your point, Phil, the pre-sales engineer, right? It really, I call it a translator. I mean, that's the best way I can say it, because it'll go back and forth. And if you master a skill set similar to that, makes it easier. Again, whether you're technical or just on the business side, just having a deep understanding.
Yep.
And it's not that hard.
Yeah, Andy, you're able to make connections by being like, well, this is possible and you have this problem. So clearly you should be able to see that you put these two things together. It's like so obvious. They really don't. They
no.
They don't, man.
They really don't.
They really don't. And they need to see it to believe it. They need to be like, not that it's possible. They don't care that it's possible, right? Mm-hmm. They want to say, did you do it? Can it be done? You need to show them the working thing. I input this and I got this out. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've pretty much tried that. I had blind reviews comparing output from specialist tools to ChatGPT with a kind of 8-line prompt. And the general AIs came out better in most cases.
Right.
And yet they are still pouring money a year later.
So then you've got to go get 50 new people to look at this thing in that industry. Do you know what I mean? Because by the way, there's also, you mentioned sunk costs. The scariest thing with AI agency work is sunk costs by trying to stick with the same leads. Nothing will help you more than working on getting new leads. Nothing. It's the motion that keeps this all going, right? Yeah. You never have enough leads. You never have enough people you're close with. You're never, you know what I mean? And the more you do that, and the more you grow the volume of people you're talking to, you're not just going to focus on trying to get that one thing for that one customer you have a good relationship with, because those almost never work, right? You want that one person who's just you want to have enough calls where you get on that one call where it's just they're like, oh yeah, fucking obviously, right?
Not trying to sell any of this stuff either, I should say. I work in a company, but then I also on a volunteer panel about AI in our particular industry. There's a task force set up by one of the industry representative bodies. So that's the angle I come from. I'm not even trying to sell, it's not that I'm saying you should get this off me or trying to sell them someone else's thing. I'm literally trying to tell them what they're doing is unlikely to be successful in terms of return on investment compared to what they could just get off the shelf.
So what you're going to have to do over time, even if you're trying to do that, just genuinely help them from a volunteer basis, is if it's not working, you're going to have to work on the translation skills in a way that they understand and can appreciate. And you're probably not there yet. you're most likely correct in the solution, but the translation and communication of that thing is what needs the work most likely. And it's not an easy thing for what it's worth.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah, Flavia, I think you have sorry, Phil. Flavia, I think you have a question. I was waiting for Phil to talk because I know he's been answering. He's been reading your mind.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
The question is quite quick. I've been having a lot of lawyers' offices. I don't know how to translate it in English. Escritórios de advocacia. It's law offices, law firms. Yeah, law firms, from mid-size to big ones, and in all of them, the main problem, and also in the health department, the main problem to AI adoption is that they only think that AI should be governed by the IT department, and that's where they hit the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They start to, probably the guys from the IT department just start to ask for so many specificities, like, well, you should do, what do you know about ML? Because we might need our own model. And when I told them, no, you don't. You don't at all. Oh, Flavio, how much you know about Python? Nothing. I don't need to know anything about Python.
Yeah.
I can ask a no code and it does all for me. Why should I know anything about Python?
And I tell you this when it comes to IT teams, if you just build something valuable enough for the business, they'll steamroll the IT team.
Yeah, hopefully.
And you have to educate like those clients.
Yeah, they need education.
On, like AI and IT is two completely different language.
Yes.
It's not in the same domain.
And I got to jump in a moment, y'all. But the other thing that I would mention there is like how do I say this? That's where you kind of got to go against the grain of some of my earlier advice, where like you're really having a stubborn IT department, where it's just like you find with the business one problem to solve up front, right? And that way IT doesn't just get you in this loop of like, well, then we got to use them for everything. It's like, no, you don't, right? Look how happy I made your team. Or like ask IT, what's one annoying ass, just ask them, this is the best question for IT. What's one annoying ass thing on your roadmap everyone keeps asking for that you're having trouble like delivering on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, automation on the printer, for example, when it doesn't print.
Yeah, and then just work with them in that area, you know?
Hey, Phil, I know you got to bounce. I just want to say thanks for sharing. I mean, you've given some pretty cool, valuable insights today. What I love is, again, it goes with the theme of why we put this community together. Cutting through all the bullshit noise, giving real world examples, what's working, what isn't. And it's super exciting to be able to validate a lot of the different things from the community here. But also folks like you. I hadn't met you before, but Shah was telling me you guys had some great conversations. So, and everybody here, this is why we started the Gen AI Institute. Not to sell shit, but really just move beyond the hype and help whoever we can. So you can scale this. So appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Love it, man. So great to meet y'all. The only other thing that I'll add here, I'll put it in chat just so you have it.
Make sure you guys follow me on TikTok.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, but also I just put in chat my website. There's a button on that site that if you want to sign up for my SMS messages, it's not international yet. It's mainly for US. I'm figuring out a way to do it with WhatsApp. But like I drop messages here and there for folks where it's just like new job openings or new gigs that I'm finding in the space, right? Or whatever, different apps that I find that I'm like, oh, I got some free access for. Like, I just gave away like a $600 ticket to Clay's conference, right? Like, I don't know. I just like have a bunch of random connections that I try to pour into that like one area. So if that's at all helpful or interesting, you can sign up there for it if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us. With WhatsApp, we actually. There's a lot of new things that WhatsApp's adding. I think they're realizing they need to get it together. But everybody in the world, we use it, except for China folks. We use something else. But yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure we sign up, and super grateful. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, y'all. Good to jam.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.
Everyone. Bye.